Hello, my friends. Today we're going to take a look at chapter 3, and I will open up our chapter 3, or I'll share my screen with you so we can get started. Okay, you should be able to see this, I think. And I think we're ready. So chapter 3 is about cells, membranes, and homeostasis. Here's a nice picture of a lot of things happening in a cell. And in this video, we'll cover cell theory and cell types. And so in the 1800s, people started understanding cells in a little more detail than they had back in the 14, 15, 1600s with crude microscopes. People were recognizing them and knowing there are these tiny little things. But then by the 1800s, researchers came up with what we call cell theory. And it's pretty basic. At least initially, it was pretty basic. The idea was, hey, guess what? All organisms are made up of cells. I'm going to turn on my pen so I can write things if I really want to. All organisms are made up of cells. The cell is the basic building block for life. So bigger things are made up of tiny little cells. The smallest living unit is a cell, right? And in the mid 1800s, several researchers one researcher named Virchow came up with a second part of cell theory that said cells come from pre-existing cells. Well, that doesn't seem like a surprise to us, but the current theory in the 1800s was sort of a spontaneous generation of cells, which obviously doesn't happen. And researchers are like, no, cells come from pre-existing cells. All right. And so we're interested in taking a look at the different cells in this, the different cell types, and also how cells work in this chapter. So first off, there are different cell types. Next week in lab, you're going to take a look at something that looks an awful lot like this picture on the bottom of your screen in lab. These are Elodea cells that are a part of a tiny little aquatic plant called Elodea. And you're going to get a good look at them. Those little green spots are, by the way, chloroplasts. In any case, the two pictures here kind of show us what prokaryotes and what eukaryotes look like. So what's the difference between a prokaryote and a eukaryote? Well, I came up with something that we're obviously not going to do in class, but a little set of questions to ask and to think about all the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. And so let's run through these. Let's take a look at them. So it says, what are tiny cells that are about 1 to 10 micrometers in size? Now, a micrometer is very small. Remember that there are 1,000 micrometers in a single millimeter. And there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter, right? Okay, so these are the tiniest cells. Which ones are the smallest? It turns out prokaryotes are, on average, the smallest cells, and they do range in size, usually from between 1 and 10 micrometers. Eukaryotes are quite a bit bigger, usually. Usually eukaryotes range in size from about 10 to 100 micrometers. There are, of course, exceptions like eggs like chicken eggs and things of that nature. But for the most part, eukaryote cells are bigger than prokaryotes. Now, the next two questions kind of hang together. It says the nucleus in these cells has 2 membranes. And number 3, the endoplasmic reticulum is an organelle found in these cells. Prokaryotes or eukaryotes? Prokaryotes are the simpler cells. Prokaryotes literally mean before karya or before kernel. Eukaryote literally means true karya or true kernel. And that actually refers to the nucleus. Eukaryotes have a true nucleus. Prokaryotes are before nucleus. Eukaryotes are these cells that have more complexity to them. They have membrane-bound organelles. Membrane-bound organelles. And so eukaryotes have a true nucleus, and their nucleus has two complete membranes around it. We'll talk about those membranes next. Prokaryotes don't have a membrane-bound nucleus. They have a region in their cells that we would call the nucleoid region, but it's not a membrane-bound region. In eukaryotes, of course, what's inside the nucleus includes our DNA, right? Additionally, eukaryotes have a whole suite of membrane-bound organelles, including things like the endoplasmic reticulum, the smooth and the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Can you think of other organelles that are found in eukaryotic cells? I bet you can. Things like the Golgi apparatus or mitochondria, chloroplasts, lysosomes. Those are all membrane-bound structures that eukaryotic cells possess, but not prokaryotes. All right. E. coli is this type of cell, and 5 fungi are composed of these cells. All right, so can we come up with some examples of prokaryotes and some examples of eukaryotes? So prokaryotes are these simpler cells that don't have membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotes include all of the bacteria. There are 3 domains of living things that we've divided the world into. One of them are the bacterial domain, and that includes things like E. coli and the Staphylococcus aureus, which causes staph infections like MRSA, the infections that cause, the bacteria that cause ear infections, all those kinds of things, right? The second major category of prokaryotes are called domain archaea. They're kind of oddballs. Simple cells, don't have membrane-bound nuclei. A lot of the archaea live in really weird, hot or cold places like the hot springs in Yellowstone. You'll find lots of archaea. But they're another category of cell. The eukaryotes include kind of everything else that you can think of. So fungi, you bet. Fungi are definitely a part of the eukaryotes. What else? Animals. Animals are made up of eukaryotic cells. Fungi are. Plants are made of eukaryotic cells. And a lot of single-celled, kind of what we used to call protist organisms. And algae are made up of eukaryotes, so lots and lots of eukaryotic cells. We're in that branch. We're in that domain of life. And so are fungi. Okay, let's go on to the next 2, 6 and 7. DNA is the genetic information in these cells, and the genetic material in these cells is composed of multiple linear strings called chromatin. DNA is the genetic information in these cells. Well, obviously, eukaryotes fall into that category for sure. We have DNA. What about prokaryotes? Did they have DNA? Yes. This is a trick question. The hereditary information for all living things is DNA. So prokaryotes and eukaryotes have DNA. Now, how it's organized is a little bit different. Prokaryotic DNA is organized as a single circular molecule. It's double-stranded, but it's a single circular molecule, and it sits in, if you're looking at like a a prokaryotic cell, a bacterial cell. It just sits in kind of the nucleoid region of the cell, but it's single, one chromosome, and it's circular. Eukaryotes, on the other hand, have multiple linear strings of their DNA, and then actually DNA and proteins together are called chromatin. These stringy masses, so we're going to say if we draw a eukaryotic cell, there's all sorts of stringy chromatin inside the nucleus. There are multiple strands of chromatin in each cell, and the number of strands depend upon the species. We have 46 strands of chromatin, and during certain phases, like during cell division, our chromatin coils up and condenses on itself to form really tightly packed DNA called chromosomes. We have 46 chromosomes, don't we? And so the genetic material is composed of multiple linear strings called chromatin. We got to circle eukaryotes for that one. And then finally, ribosomes are found in these cells. Ribosomes. What do we remember from high school? Ribosomes are the site of protein synthesis. So eukaryotes definitely have ribosomes. Do prokaryotes have ribosomes? Proteins are pretty important. Proteins are found in prokaryotes. Prokaryotes also have ribosomes. Yes, so you're going to have to circle that guy as well. Yes, prokaryotes have ribosomes. And so, good work. We've gotten an idea of the different types of cells that we're going to take a look at. We are going to focus, though, primarily on membrane structure and function and cell structure and function in eukaryotic cells. This will be the part of next lecture. So we'll move on, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Somehow I have to stop sharing or something. There we go. All right. Bye.